Welcome to the Well-Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Masri. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Thorold and Masri, and on this episode, I interviewed Nadeem Ahmed. Nadeem told me a little bit about his story, how he started off in retail, used to own some menswear shops. I think he said he owned 3 of them and then ended up selling them and reached out to a friend who was a real estate investor and then ended up working with him. So that was his start to investing. He does a lot of student rentals, rent to owns, and we kind of broke down those markets. We talked about purpose-built student rentals and then also purpose-built multi-unit properties. So if you guys are interested in this stuff, student rentals specifically, and then you want to learn a little bit about the rent-to-own process, what it's like to vet some of these tenants, how to make sure that your students are paying rent, that sort of stuff, I think you're going to find a lot of value in this episode. And if you do, make sure to share it with a friend or a family member, and also leave us a review on the Apple Podcast platform. If you want to connect with me, go to welloff.ca and then book a call, or feel free to follow me on Instagram, welloffx. I'm happy to connect and talk about some of the opportunities that I have in the Niagara region of Ontario. So there you go. Enjoy the episode. All right, I'm here with Nadeem Ahmed. Nadeem and I, we used to work together when I was at Rockstar Real Estate. He actually showed me, like, you taught me a little bit about student rentals and like different things at that time. Right. So thank you for joining me today. It's nice having you here. So I like to start off by asking you a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, and one or two things you remember.
Yeah, born in Hamilton.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Born in Hamilton. Then grew up in Mississauga. Spent most of my life there. And in Toronto some part of my life in the 30s, and then back in Mississauga again, still there. So. Okay.
So Mississauga, Hamilton. Tell me a bit about your journey. Like, how did you get into investing? What got you into it?
So funny thing is, actually, I'm working at Rockstar, and when I joined Rockstar, in 10 years, I didn't have any investment properties, and just didn't know anything about it. And it's just funny how I ended up here, actually. I was working in retail in the 90s, and then at mid-90s, I decided, hey, maybe it's time that I start doing my own retail. So I opened my own store at Lawrence Square in 1995 in Toronto, a menswear store, and it did really well. And then about 3 years later, I decided to open another store in Bolton, in Caledon area, and it was a men's and women's clothing store. And did really well. Just grew with it, and had another store in Mississauga, a couple other locations, and just did really well. And eventually, to 2010, one of my former employees decided to make an offer on purchasing one of my stores. And I was like, well, it's nothing I've ever thought about doing besides retail. This is what I do. And so she gave me an offer. I looked at it. I was like, wow, okay, this is crazy. This is a really good offer. So I called up one of my good friends, Mike DeZorma, the Rockstar, and I said, hey, Mike, what do I do? Do I sell this, or what should I do if I sell? He says, sell the store, come work with me at Rockstar, join us at Rockstar. So I said, okay, what is Rockstar, right?
Yeah.
They were fairly new at that time too, and so I did some, just looked them up, what they do and stuff, and came and met Mike and met Tom and Nick, and saw what they were doing is amazing, about investments. Myself, Tom had asked me, hey, Nadeem, why haven't you bought investment properties? Well, one reason was I never knew how to. Mm-hmm. And that's what I liked about Rockstar is, like, from the time that you walk into the front door for your first training and to your one-on-one meeting with your coach, you're taught pretty much everything. So everything's under one umbrella. Mm-hmm. Anywhere from, paralegals, which are a big part of our investment journey, banks for lending, lawyers, accountants. So everything's all under one umbrella. So that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Joining a brokerage like this.
So would you remember when you bought your first place, and do you remember what you got into at that time? Was it a student rental?
Yeah, my first property that I got involved for investment was in Bowmanville. It was a single family home. I had a rent to own tenant who committed to buying the house, and he did a nice down payment. I was like, wow, this is really good. This is good. And so he did the program, rent-to-own program, and unfortunately he didn't end up buying. So he ended up continuing renting for the 3 years, I believe. And after the 3 years when he left, I had built up enough equity that I decided to maybe go to the bank and say, hey, you know, I have all this equity. What do I do with it? And so pulled out some equity and renovated the house that I was renting, and then ended up doing another purchase from that money. Mm-hmm. And same house, got another renter in, did another rent-to-own program. Unfortunately, that renter didn't pan out either for purchasing, so I ended up having to build up more equity. Mm-hmm. And after a couple of years, I ended up just renting it, straight renting, and just pulling the money out, just equity out, just leveraging each tenant and buying more.
Yeah.
And so I've started building a portfolio from there. Cool.
I like that you say unfortunately, because I think there's this like negative connotation around rent to own. Some people think that investors are trying to take advantage of people and they don't want them to ever buy the house. But I know a lot of people actually want them to succeed. Of course, you want them to complete the program. And if anyone's interested in learning more about rent to own, we've covered it on 2 episodes in the past, so you can dig those up and listen to those. Are you still doing with clients, or even for yourself, are you still doing rent to owns at this time?
Not recently, but up to last year, yes, was. Just the market has been very erratic to even, pinpoint and narrow down a price point because there are future buys. So I have kind of slowed down on it, not really encouraging it right now. Yeah. But it's definitely something that I would definitely look at again, because it does definitely help the first-time home buyer get into a home. It does, as an investor, help you build some equity. It's kind of your burr without lifting a hammer, right? Because in 3 years you have built up this equity and this capital that you're going to get money out of. Yeah, for sure. Because I know when I was working with you at the time, you were still really active. This was maybe around 2 years ago. A lot of your clients were still doing rent to owns. Yes. But like you said, now because the market is appreciating so quickly, it's hard to predict what price you should be selling it for. So what have you been shifting over those clients? What investment strategy? So the other investment strategy that I really like personally, again, is student rentals. Find that students, if you have parental guarantees on leases, and I do focus a lot on university students like Brock, Western, McMaster. Those students are committed to an education. Sure, they're going to have their parties on the weekend, but at the end of the day, they are responsible. I have my own student rentals that I've had. I've never had any issues. Small issues always come up with any rental property, but that's pretty much it. There's a bit of a myth on student rentals. Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit? Like, sure. What are some of the fears around owning student rentals?
So people fear that they're going to destroy the house. They're going to damage the house. Burn down the house basically. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you have it properly managed, which is a key. It's hard to manage a student rental without management because you're not there on a daily basis or weekly basis. Property management companies make sure that, for example, I was at a property yesterday where it wasn't being managed, and the neighbors are complaining that, garbage gets rolled over, that's on the street, we got to clean it for them. So when you have a property manager, like that's something that he would be responsible making sure that the kids do, because kids when they're 18, 19 years old and getting out for the first time are not going to be very responsible. Not all of them anyways. Yeah.
When when my cousin was in university, so I'm like 2 years older than him, I remember I went over to his place. He was living with like 3 or 4 other guys, and their house was so disgustingly dirty. They had pizza boxes on the floor, like laid out, because it was for the snow. You'd walk with your boots.
Right.
It was so nasty.
We've seen that. We've seen everything.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, also the way I look at my investment properties, and I always suggest that to my clients, is, if you respect your property, the tenants will respect the property. Sure. So they're not going to be scrubbing your appliances and deep cleaning. Yeah. But for that, if you send in a cleaner every 4 weeks, 5 weeks, sure, it's an expense, but again, it's your business, it's your house that you'll keep for a long time. Yeah. Invest in it, right? Send a cleaner in, clean, because kids will vacuum and maybe they'll do a little bit of dusting and stuff, but they're not going to scrub toilet bowls, right?
Do you build the cleaning fee into the rent?
Yes, not all the time, but yes, we have done that before. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, an extra $25 a month.
Okay. So what does it cost usually for the cleaner?
It was about $150 for me. I know it's gone up, but now because of everything happening,
Yeah.
it's about $200, $225.
Okay, so let's say roughly you're spending $200 a month to have the place clean, but like you said, you factor that into your payment because your cash flow on student rentals is typically higher.
Yep.
Let's say somebody's getting into a student rental today. What kind of cash flow are you seeing? What's the purchase price? What are the rents that you're looking at and the cash flow?
Yep. So student rentals that I'm working on right now currently, they range price point from $750 to $850. Cash flow is definitely a little tight right now. The way the market is right now, I think your appreciation is your cash flow.
Yeah.
Take advantage of that. But yes, as things progress and increases happen now, rental increases are we're able to put them in now. So yeah, you'll balance out, right?
So you're spending,
and your cash flow does increase after a couple of years, anyways, when you start paying down more equity on your mortgage, right?
Yeah. And naturally rents have been going up.
Yes.
So you're spending $750,000 up to $850,000 right now. In which markets are you talking about? In the Niagara region, like Thorold?
Brock.
Yeah.
I did one recently in Kingston, Queens.
Okay, Queens, Kingston. So Brock is Thorold, St Catharines area.
Correct. Yeah.
Those are the primary areas.
Primary
you look at?
and Western, in London.
Yeah.
Hamilton's not been so lucky recently because the prices have just really escalated there. But Hamilton's also a very good.
So
market.
that's like, let's say you're looking at Thorold, for example. Is that closer to 750 or are you closer to 850?
Depends where you are.
Yeah.
An older home probably with 750. Like Winterberry is a popular street for student rentals. We're looking at 850 to 900 right now.
Yeah.
A recent sales.
How many rooms are you getting usually?
5 to 7.
5 to 7 rooms.
Yeah.
And are they usually do they need work in the 850 price range or pretty good?
Most of them are turnkey.
Turnkey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you getting per room? Sorry, I don't know if you already.
Yeah. About 700 to 750.
Okay. 700 times, let's say, 5, you said?
Yeah.
Five rooms. So what is that, 3,500 a month?
3,500, but you're looking at a lower price point, looking about 750 max.
And what would be typically the cash flow on that number, like roughly?
About 500.
About 500.
Yeah, that's my target always. To
and
try
that's
to
with
able
the
to
cleaning?
Get,
With the cleaning fee?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Like that's not that easy to find anymore, to get $500 a month. So using like student rentals, that's pretty good. I know it used to be 1,000 plus a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I've done quite a few in the back, even 3-4 years ago, or over $1,000 monthly cash flow. But yeah, it's a little different now.
Yeah. What about so yourself? Are you still actively looking for student rentals, or like where are you at right now with your investment?
So just recently, I'm closing on a property with my brother-in-law actually in St. Catharines. It's a semi-detached. Just buy and hold. I'm looking for anything I can buy at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Where I can just break even. Again, like I said, to me right now, it's the old traditional investing is you buy property and let equity build.
Yeah.
Right. Cash flow is just a bonus. Appreciation is a really good bonus right now. So factoring in all that, my main focus is always if I can find a decent property where I know for a long term I can hold it.
Yeah.
So that single family home, just renting it.
So you're just doing a straight single family
This
rental.
particular purchase, yes.
And it's still breaking even.
Yep.
Okay. And is that like with 20% down that you're
20,
able to do that? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
In St. Catharines.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a myth, I think. A lot of people don't believe that you can buy a single family home now and make it cash flow. But I think it's still possible. It just depends on the market, the area, the amount of rent that you're getting.
Don't forget, like the rents have gone up tremendously.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding, just even helping some clients out renting properties, we're getting a lot of renters coming into the market now because the sellers are selling their properties, and people are buying them from all over Ontario to just move in and live in them. So investment properties are getting lesser and lesser. There's more renters out there.
Yeah.
Because people need a place to live. So people are, for example, I had another transaction. I was listing it, and the buyer sold their property in Toronto. I'm not sure exactly where, but they sold it. They made a good chunk on it. And they came into the Niagara region, and they paid well above asking because it was still half the price what they sold theirs at. So they just wanted a home to live in.
Yeah.
So
I know it's very common now. Like I'm seeing that because I sold one of my places in Hamilton, and the buyer was from Toronto, and they were just like, "There's nothing even close to this price point in Toronto right now." So I will gladly pay well above the asking price to get into this market.
Right.
Yeah, and to be honest, she's probably done well. Like she closed a couple months ago, and I think that the value has increased quite a bit there. So
yeah.
And do you hold on to all of your rentals, or like are you potentially selling some and then shifting over?
I've been holding on since the last 9 years since I've been investing. But I'm really tempted, to be honest with you. One of my properties, it's kind of like I've always had a bit some issues with it. So I'm thinking, do I, cash out, make my life a little bit easier, or do I just hold it and just be patient and let it grow more? So it's kind of a crossroads, because right now the values are good, right?
Yeah. It's hard because sometimes you also think I could just refinance this and keep it, but yeah, I mean, at some point you have to decide whether the property still fits the portfolio or not. I just actually spoke to Nick, and he was basically saying like, I'm not really interested in selling my properties. I keep them, but again, everybody's in a different place, and it depends where you're at. What has real estate investing done for you personally? Has it changed your life in any way? What kind of impact has it had?
So being self-employed for pretty much all my life, the first 15 years of my life, I was in a different field. And living comfortably, but just paying bills. And once I've started investing and growing my portfolio, I'm starting to live, as Rockstar logo is, your life, your terms. And I'm starting to see that come through for me, where I'm actually able to enjoy the good things in life and live my life at my terms.
Just out of curiosity, what does that mean for you? Like, in what way are you living life on your terms?
Well, just a bit more, like I said, being able to enjoy good things in life that I was not able to do before. More time with my family, my daughter. So just more, just feeling more in a better place.
Yeah. What advice do you have for investors? Maybe somebody who's kind of in a position like you, where they were working a job and maybe they're not happy, and they want to get into real estate investing. What advice do you have for those people?
Right now in today's market, see if you can just find something that you can buy that's not going to bleed you, just going to help you grow, and just secure a property right now. And after my very first property, I really didn't use my own money. I leveraged always. Yeah. And that's one advice I can give somebody, is just to try and buy a property. Yeah. Get yourself a property where it's going to help you build equity and help you with your, again, this is not a quick scheme. It's a long-term plan. Yeah. I usually use 3 years increments to see where I'm at for myself and for my members, and start building our portfolio that way. So, but yeah, just at this point, if you can just find yourself a property, buy and hold. Yeah.
A couple years ago, you were working with a developer that was specializing in building like legal triplexes, I think at the time, like purpose-built triplexes.
Yeah, so I've been working with a couple of builders, about 3 builders in the Niagara region. They do purpose-built student housing, multi-units. So that's what I've been working with, yes. So, student rentals and multi-units, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? I think the projects that you were looking at the time, they were a little bit pricier than the older homes in the area, but you were able to get some pretty good rents there.
Yep. So just for example, like the student rental, we were building student rentals with their own washrooms. So getting from at that time rents were about $1,500 to $600. We're able to get $700 to $750 at that time. Because you're building a nicer home, higher purchase price point, but you're also generating more rent, right?
Is that something that you ever thought about getting into, developing new construction?
Yep, I have actually. I did buy a property close to Brock just after COVID started, and at that time my goal was to knock it down, demo it, and build. But because of cost of construction, everything that kind of went up, I decided to just hold. I have a renter that's paying rent on time, and covering my expenses. So I've been just buying and holding. It's got a lot where I can probably build a semi-detached or 3 townhouses. So that's my next step. Is actually I'm going to start looking into it for this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Last time we spoke, which was a couple of weeks ago over the phone, you had said that developer that you were working with, they don't have anything new coming up. Is that because of the challenges with finding land, or is it the challenges with just building in the first place?
So feedback I got from one of them was that all the time and effort and money they spend, they're able to just sever the lots and sell them.
Yeah.
And make just as much at this point. Yeah.
Interesting.
So like one of the guys that I work with, he's sold off about 20 lots in the last year and a half.
Because there seems to be there's a big demand for that sort of thing. I think if you have purpose-built rentals, especially multi-units, I think somebody can make quite a bit of money that way. But for some reason, it's just you don't see that too often. It's very rare to come across an opportunity like that.
Right.
Yeah. Why do you think that is, in your opinion?
Sorry, missed that last part there.
Why do you think developers aren't building more of these multi-units, new builds?
It's just cost.
Yeah, too expensive.
It's just cost, yeah. I am working with somebody right now who's building 6 new homes, purpose-built student rentals, and I was actually at the site yesterday. Great project right near Brock University off Glendale. Pricier, much higher price points than we were used to.
Yeah.
The purchase price, but the numbers itself will balance because they are getting higher money for rent. Like I said, the student rentals are being built with each bedroom comes with its own bathroom. Mm-hmm. And in COVID now that we've all been through, I'm sure parents would like to have their kids not sharing bathrooms, and so they have their own. So they're paying. They expect it on this one is about $800 per room.
Nice.
And I think they've already leased more than half of them.
That's pretty crazy when you think just a room, because a couple years ago you can rent a basement for $800. Now you're getting one room for that price.
But you're getting your bathroom, and it's new. It's higher ceilings, more windows.
Yeah.
Better quality product.
So can you break down a little bit of what it's like to own a student rental, managing it on the day-to-day? I know you kind of touched on that earlier, having the cleaner come in. How are you vetting these students? Are you doing that yourself, or do you have a property management company that's finding them for you?
I do them myself, but also I do have some relationships with property managers in the Niagara region, and so they've been helping out. Mm-hmm. But again, at the end of the day, it's about the character of the student is based basically on not character of the student. Sorry, wrong word to say. Parental banking. Okay. If we get parental guarantees on leases. That's how we're.
So what does that really mean, though? If you have a guarantor on a lease, if the student doesn't pay, are you able to pursue the parent's credit score? Can you impact their credit score, or how does that work?
So personally, I've not had that situation.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what you would be doing.
Okay. So you get that on every single student lease that you have.
Yeah.
And then if you ever have issues, do you call the parents and be like, hey, this is what's happening?
So one issue that I had one of my properties was a kid, he drove home late at night and he didn't stop. He went right to the garage door. Oh. And so the next morning, when the other students reached out, and so we got in touch with the kid who did that. Right away, we're like, okay, we're going to call your dad, and we're going to bill on his credit card. He's like, oh, no, I'll pay for it. So that's the worst case scenario that I've ever come across.
And what's it like with the eviction process if you have to? Let's say you have a student that's not paying. You reach out to the parents, they're not answering. Have you ever been through that?
I haven't, but again, it's part of our business, so I am familiar with it. We do have proper legal teams in place where we reach out to them, and they...
Do you have to evict them like you would any other tenant, or is the procedure...
No different,
it's the same thing.
It's still, because you're part of the Ontario residential lease.
Yeah, so you're looking at, depending on how things go, but it could be 6 months potentially before you get the sheriff over to kick them out. Possibly.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize it was like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so how are you vetting these students? I know you said you get the personal guarantee. Are you doing Facebook market ads? Are you putting, how are you finding them, and how do you vet them?
I do a lot of, I still to this day use a lot of Kijiji.
Okay.
I find there's less traffic with less advertising, but still more people looking.
Mm-hmm. So just Kijiji, that's it?
Yep.
Okay. When somebody reaches out, then what do you do? Do you have a list of questions that you normally ask them, or do you bring them to the property?
I prefer bringing people into the property. Again, for me, it's always, paper tells you one thing, but it's also my gut feeling, my gut instinct. So I'd rather just meet the people in person and feel them out.
Yeah. And you're doing all that yourself?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you have the time? I know you've got a lot going on. You've got your own student rentals, but you also have your clients that you're working with. How do you manage your time for all this?
I try and so what I do is I try and plan my days where I'm going to be. for work, and at the same time, I try and book personal appointments. At the same time, like just right after this interview, I'm going to see some properties, and after that, I have one of my properties that I have to show some rentals. So I booked them for tonight.
Yeah, that actually makes me think. How are you finding opportunities these days? Obviously, everybody right now, we know that there is kind of a shortage of opportunities. You have to kind of create opportunities in this market. So what are you finding you've been successful with in finding good deals for clients and for yourself?
Good deals?
Deals that make sense.
Yeah, it's about doing your numbers, right? Doing your number crunch. And so deals, I don't know if there's any good deals. Sometimes, yes, there are properties that have more potential than they're worth. For example, doing a burp, for example, where you're able to buy a home and do upgrades to it, maybe add a second suite and make the value higher.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
sorry, one more thing. And then looking for properties, it's very hard.
Yeah,
it's very difficult right now because there's not many properties available in the market. But looking for property that may have a lot where you're able to sever it and get some value there.
Right. And these are still student rentals properties that you're talking about, or you're talking about just
any home?
Yeah. Okay. Are a lot of the people you're working with, are they looking for student rentals, or are a lot of them looking for just a standard single family rental or duplex rental?
Yeah, it's a bit of mix of everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own what they like.
Yeah.
Again, I show them what works. This is what you can get with a single family home. This is what you can get for multi-unit. This is what you can get for a student rental. Or just a buy and hold.
Yeah. Well, what are the numbers you're seeing right now for single family, like the one you said you recently purchased, single family, and you said it breaks even? What kind of price point was that?
$750.
$750, and the rent you're expecting
$2,400.
$2,400. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So it must be in a good area.
Yeah, it's actually it is. It's in North St Catharines.
North St Catharines. Yeah. That was one thing that you kind of helped me with at first. You kind of showed me which areas to stay away from for rent to own specifically. But I know that you were saying in St. Catharines, if you're north of the QEW, usually you're getting pretty good tenants.
Correct.
You're getting like a higher quality profile, that sort of thing. Are there any areas like that you would recommend for maybe Welland or Thorold yourself?
Welland, I have not done too many, mostly buy and hold rentals, but mostly the rent to owns I've done have been all in North St. Catharines.
North St. Catharines.
With rent to owns, kind of a different tenant pool you're looking at. You're looking at somebody who's making six figures, career oriented, just hasn't been able to purchase. Mm-hmm. So you kind of assist them in helping with their credit repairs, building their equity by paying higher rent. You usually find that more in a nicer neighborhood. There are areas where you can buy a lower price point home, but you're not always going to get the best tenant that will qualify for that. So,
Awesome. Okay, I think we covered a lot. Do you feel like there's anything we missed here, or anything you want to share?
I think you've asked me enough right questions.
Okay, so the last thing is, how do people reach you? What services do you provide?
Yeah, so I'm with Rockstar Real Estate, working as a coach, investor myself. I do, as mentioned through our discussion here, like student rentals, multi-units, working on land severance now, doing properties that we can appreciate value in. So those are the services I help out with, and helping people with tenant pools.
Awesome. Nadeem, thanks a lot for doing this. It's always nice seeing you. I appreciate you taking the time. And we'll talk again soon.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Your support is truly appreciated. And if you can share this with a friend or family member that might benefit from the information, remember, our goal is to motivate and inspire others to take action and to build wealth and to become well off. Enjoy the rest of your day.